Yeah. All right, we're back. This is the Paraglider Show. You're listening to David Gabriel and Murray Hayes out of Scotland talking paragliding. Hey, Murray, I've got a question for you.
And it is just hey, Murray as well.
Murray, have you done anything like diving or skydiving or mountain climbing?
He's done it all, Dad.
You've done all those.
Jumping out of a perfectly good aircraft.
Yeah. Well,
I've been invited, but haven't taken up the opportunity yet.
Well, have you?
Contrary to popular belief, I don't actually do adrenaline sports. Everybody thinks I do.
Do you have other hobbies?
Oh yes, I used to do a lot of sailing. We abseil, but everything cross-pollinates. So we use the teaching for paragliding for skiing. We use the teaching for skiing for paragliding, abseiling, photography, anything really.
Okay. Well, I was the reason I was asking Murray, I was kind of going to move into the next topic and see if maybe you might have other references as well as your paragliding reference. But I was thinking here just recently, listening to some stories from some of the younger pilots talk about some of the cross-country trips that they've made in flying, and surprising how many people don't have a buddy system, don't use team flying when going cross-country.
Definitely a big advantage. We've tried to promote that, but we find it's quite slow in taking up. We have a lot of our members will only come out flying when I'm there. But although we've tried posting this up on the websites and sort of saying, put up your contact details for buddying, and it's a great idea. There seems, I can't understand it, but there seems to be a reluctance in this actually happening, and yet it makes so much sense. It really does.
Well, it's like one of the experiences that I had in my early life was scuba diving and diving in general. And that's a real big buddy type system sport. And a lot of the concepts and the reasons are no different than why you would want to have that same system implemented.
But in scuba diving, you're not going to be the first guy to sink out. And like if your buddy sees you sinking out, that just sucks. So it's better to go by yourself. Nobody can see you sink out. Nobody knows.
Well, Gabriel, what about hypoxia when your students were talking you down?
Yeah, I know. I'm playing the game.
He's playing, but actually, I hear story after story of somebody landing out in the wilderness somewhere, lost, and having to walk out for hours, and people looking for him and searching for him and wondering what happened to him, if he's hurt, if he's still alive. And with the buddy system, the few times that I've done some cross-country flying, I've had a buddy. It's sometimes it works against you if you're just flying with a guy in the sky, because if you go down, he's got to come down. But oftentimes a buddy system to me means having a support system. And the support system doesn't necessarily have to be in the sky with you, but as long as you've got one on the ground that's tracking you, following you, watching you, talking to you, that's the buddy system. And paragliding is such an individual sport, and it's such an egoistic sport that oftentimes people are only thinking of me, me, me. But when you get out in these cross-country terrains and you get lost or you get hurt, the buddy system can save your life. And I'm just trying
particularly with a big country, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. But I would say my approach to it, for practical reasons, is air traffic control, because I'm almost always talking to air traffic control. They actually know where I am. They know what I'm doing. If I'm going down and think I might be getting out of radio range, even if I'm going to get back up, I'll let them know where I am, maybe dropping below radio range. If they don't hear back from me, they know that I'll phone them because I have the private line, and let them know that I'm okay. So you got to back up. If you've got a rescue helicopter coming and looking for you, and you're on 2 meter in this country, apart from the fact of being illegal over here, they're not going to be able to speak to you. If you can transmit directly to a rescue helicopter, my radios have the VOR system built into them, so with the beacons that we've got here, I can give them a radio as well.
Cool.
But yeah, buddy system, I mean, the chap, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's disabled, a slightly disabled pilot, and there was a fire in the valley.
When we were at the Owens,
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic example of the massive pluses in flying with other people.
Right.
I mean, there is no doubt, if you can fly with somebody.
Well, it's I don't know, maybe it's an educational thing, maybe it's just trying to get people to be a little bit more thinking along the lines of safety or whatever, but it's probably something that if people that want to go out and fly, want to set records, you have a lot better chance and a lot more fun doing it with a team of people than doing it by yourself, that's for sure.
There's only one thing you must always remember, though, and that's what they call risky shift. common sense tells you that if you're flying with somebody, you're less likely to have an accident, which isn't actually true. If you're flying with somebody, you're actually slightly more likely to have an accident, but you're much more likely to survive it. And the reason being is that unless you do what we actually had yesterday, I was down at the flying club, and the flying instructor had landed with his pupil, and he was quite interested in the explanation as to air pressure and airflows and why wings inflate and fly, and particularly the demonstration blowing through 2 bits of paper. And we then went on to asking whether a cylindrical wing would fly. And of course it will if you rotate it because of the difference in airflow. And he said, and this is what I told his pupil, I said, this is probably the most important lesson you'll ever learn. So the flying instructor in front of his pupil said, I don't know. Not because he doesn't know that, but in that particular example, he didn't understand the question, and he said in front of his pupil, I don't know. Now that's very hard to do, and that's one of the most vital lessons to learn, is to say you don't know, or you don't understand, or you need to work something more on. But most people, if they're flying with someone else, the tendency is, well, I don't want to look silly, they're here as well, so I'm going to launch, even if it's not safe. So flying with buddies is certainly safer if you have an accident. You always must bear in mind you're putting that slight extra pressure on yourself, even if you don't realize it, to actually fly. So the key with buddying up is backstop each other and say, no, I don't think it's safe. Let's just go down to the pub or whatever.
I agree, absolutely. It's hard to do when you got somebody else there with you, you know.
I mean, I was incredibly impressed with this guy. As I say, flying instructor, he's getting paid to do this, and in front of his pupil he says, I don't know something. And that's just so impressive. I mean, that is proper piloting.
Right. Good stuff. Wow, profound statements there, Murray.
Well, keeps people alive.
Yeah, man. You're on fire this morning, huh? Good stuff.
I try. Don't always succeed, but I'm damn certain I always try.
Yeah. I was just like, man, I should be taking notes here. We got to keep this.
The only difference between you guys and me is sometimes I can maybe give the technical term for what we all do anyway.
Right.
That's probably the only difference between me and a lot of good instructors, is whether it means I'm a smart aleck or whatever. I can usually give the correct technical term for what everybody is doing. It's just that we're quantifying it.
Right.
There was a news group I was on. The guy mentioned that somebody so-called helpful, and he was left with tangled lines that took half an hour to sort out.
Right.
I then mentioned, well, one of the very first things we teach people, because we don't teach people to fly, we teach people how to learn, was find a clean A, zoop, walk it up through your hand to the air riser, zoop, dink, 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 half the wing sorted, dink, 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 half the wing sorted. We had one guy spent 5 hours and gave up trying to untangle his wing. And I just said to his wife, I said, can you put on the kettle for a cup of tea? And the cup of tea was almost ready by the time I'd sorted the wing.
Yeah.
Now, if you get frustrated, if you get annoyed, and I've heard of, although never seen, I've heard of pilots that have actually de-rigged their glider and reconnected everything because they couldn't untangle them.
Yeah.
That is a pilot that's about to go and have an accident because they are totally brassed off. They might not fly because it's taken them so long to sort out. They might go back into their car and they crash because they are not in a good mood for doing anything that involves concentration. They are brassed off with it took forever to sort out.
It's funny you say that because I remember when I was starting out, I did that on a couple of occasions, and I remember when I was starting out, I crashed on a few occasions. I still do crash now, but at least I don't have to undo my lines from the risers beforehand.
Well, almost the first thing we do, not quite the first thing, but one of the very first things we do, certainly within the first half hour at site, by which time we've probably spent an hour going through the weather and getting them to decode the weather reports. Because one of the common things I say is that the answer to the question is often in the question.
Right.
So if you look at these really weird numbers and you go, I have no idea what this is, and you say, well, the last two bits say KT, so that could be knots. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 digits, and we have 2 digits. Well, would you ever really need a wind speed above 100, or 99 to be accurate? Okay, no. So the last 2 digits are your wind speed. Right, okay, well, the maximum number on any of these ones, when you look at the whole load of the weather reports, is always under 360.
Yeah.
Think, you can work it out.
Yeah.
You then take them, they're at the site. you lay the wing out and you go, ding, ding, mess, 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 and you give them a whole wing that's totally tangled, and they look shocked. And you say, right, how long is this going to take to sort out? Oh, at least 20 minutes. And you go, zink, 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 done. They will remember that for the rest of their life. If somebody has a tangle and you sort out for them, they're just going to tangle it again.
Right.
If you give them that shock, and we've done this again on the show in the past, you give them that shock, wow, this really works, and they understand it. They don't have to remember exactly how it was done. All they need to know is that it can be done. Stop and think, take a breath. Oh yes, clean A, work all the way up, sorted. Then they're not in the mode of having an accident. They're in the mode of, oh, okay, I can do this bit. What's the next thing?
Right. Right.
Taking their time, looking at the weather, looking at the hazards.
Good stuff. Very good.
Teaching people to learn rather than teaching people to fly.
Cool. Murray, we're going to take another one, so we'll let you get off and go flying. And
we'll get other folks phoning in.
Yeah.
And catch you guys next week.
Yeah.
I tried the MSN thing. If you get an email, it's still active. If you don't, you'll need to re-log it on.
I think I got to reactivate it because it's not working. Thanks a lot, Murray.
Okay. Catch you guys later.
You too.
Bye.
Take care, bud. Bye-bye.
Okay, Murray Hayes of Scotland, and always nice to hear from him and discuss some of his Scottish flying and beautiful terrain. I guess Gabriel's been real happy. We'll be right back.
Thank you for seeing me, Godfather. As you know, I own a butcher shop. There are many